It is time for my review of Pokemon Legends ZA after rolling credits in about 23 hours. I think for many people, this will be their favorite game in the Switch era for Pokemon. For me, it comes very close to surpassing my favorite Switch era Pokemon game, being Pokemon Legends Arceus, and in some very key aspects, it actually surpasses not just Arceus, but many other games in the series. I really liked Legends ZA. It does so much so well and continues the trend of Game Freak trying new things with each entry, but for right now, I am planting my flag and saying I like Arceus a little bit more. ZA has a lot of little nagging issues, and certainly I still think a lot of the things that people complain about Pokemon, like we are not at that point where we should be from Game Freak, from the series. But in my opinion, as someone who has played this series since I was, very young, Platinum was my first game, I think the good heavily outweighs the bad. And funnily enough, one of my major criticisms of it leading up to a release, but even in my first impressions, was the game being set entirely in Lumiose City. And I still think that definitely has its own downsides. However, I think the great appeal of this game and what sets it apart from every other Pokemon game and helps make it shine actually is Lumiose City, and specifically how the game portrays and shows Pokemon living in it. This is the best a Pokemon game has ever been when it comes to actually showing off Pokemon being real creatures, doing stuff, and doing their thing in the city, coexisting with humans, and it is such a joy. So in this video, we are going over the good and the bad of Pokemon Legends ZA and my review after rolling credits. There will be no spoilers in this video. I may do a spoiler-specific video in the near future, but for now, you don't have to worry about that. If you are new here and you enjoy Pokemon Legends ZA content and coverage, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Let's get into it. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and I hope your day is going well, and I hope you had a great launch day if you are playing the game, or maybe you're just watching all of the videos and you're online being a negative Nancy about Pokemon Legends ZA. I posted my honest first impressions after about 7-8 hours a couple of days ago, and that video did really well, and I do want to say I appreciate that. And in that video, I outlined the positives so far and the negatives, and I want to do the same thing here, of course. So we'll actually start with the big negative I talked about in that video. And in that video, my big criticism of Legends ZA, one of two, I would say, was the wild zones. And how, for me, a big part of at least modern Pokemon, a big part of the joy there has been the open area wild Pokemon catching. I love how Legends Arceus feels, but even despite its issues, the open world in Scarlet and Violet is so much fun. Just exploring and catching Pokemon. That to me is the essence of what at least makes these modern Pokemon games so great. I just love catching Pokemon, even when it's like, okay, catch 30 of this Pokemon and you're running around throwing the ball. I think that is so much fun. And the wild zones are definitely a departure from that just because of the Lumiose City setting. And like I said at the top, I think it being set entirely in Lumiose City has its own set of benefits. The wild zones are just a reality of it being set in one city that they kind of couldn't avoid given the context of the game. After rolling credits, after having access to every wild zone and exploring them all a decent amount, I still haven't done any shiny hunting, so the verdict still remains on that, although it seems like it might be pretty easy. It's definitely not as bad as I thought, but it still feels kind of restricted. It still feels, like I said, like a safari guide tour. Maybe you're jumping into the kiddie pool of a Pokemon wild area from Arceus, or even just like the open areas in Sword and Shield or something, where you have such a limited pool of Pokemon in any given zone that, like, I mean, we'll see how I feel about shiny hunting, right? But right now, it still does kind of feel just like, like the gameplay of it's still fun. Like the actual mechanics of catching a Pokemon. You have alpha Pokemon back. I really am glad those are back. Those situations where you have, the 7 Houndour and 1 Alpha Houndoom chasing you all at once can be very exciting, very fun. And there are a lot of those in the game. Mechanically, I like it more than a Scarlet and Violet because, Scarlet and Violet, you go into the battle animation, then you have to, whittle down their health bar, then throw the ball. It's not real time like Arceus. So if Scarlet and Violet had that gameplay system, I think that would be above this. And once you have all the wild zones unlocked, like there is variety there, but I would still say that's my major downside on this game in terms of just like structurally, this is an issue I have with it. I want to get back to those bigger wild areas catching Pokemon. like in Arceus. And then Lumiose City itself, I think, has a lot of good in it, and we'll talk about the side quests and how they portray Pokemon. But also, I do kind of think that it's not like the most fun thing to explore in the world, mostly because of the movement options. Now, maybe there's a side quest I missed. I have not done every side quest in the game yet, of course, but all of these alleyways kind of look the same, and then there's these weird platforming challenges. Like, it's unique, certainly. We haven't really had platforming like this at a Pokemon game before, but I don't know. It certainly doesn't give that sense of a grand adventure like most other Pokemon games do, which is what I've talked a lot about in the videos over the past week of like how it's okay if this game feels different, right? We get Pokemon games so often, why not let Game Freak try something entirely new? And hey, I mean, I'm seeing so many reactions online of people being like, hey, I'm loving this game. I'm loving the setting of Lumiose City. So I don't necessarily think it's a clear-cut one-to-one comparison to other Pokemon games because it is so different. But in general, actually literally walking around Lumiose kind of feels slow, if that makes sense. We're running around these big buildings. A lot of the time, they have these rogue mega evolutions that are like on a rooftop or something for a main story quest. And it's like, okay, how do I get to the top of this building? So you're just slowly running around it, looking for the Holovator or a ladder or something. And then you find the platforming challenge. Oh, wait, that's not the right one. You get on another rooftop and it's like, okay, how can I jump from this rooftop to another? And sometimes that's kind of fun and satisfying. Other times it's like, I wish I wasn't doing this right now. I wish I was just in a battle with a Pokemon or out there catching Pokemon or something. And yeah, I don't know if there's a side quest I missed, but why isn't there a bike or something? Or even better, the roller skates from X and Y to speed up the movement. I feel like that was a pretty easy win for this game. And actually, yeah, speaking of the rogue mega battles, so when I did my first impressions, I'd only done a couple of those at that point in the story. Now I've beaten the game, so I've done all of them. And these are fine. However, they're all set in the same arena, and they all mechanically play very similarly. You have one of the Team MZ members helping you, and you're just running around this mega void, basically dodging attacks. And these are fun, but I do feel like they are kind of damage sponges pretty often. Even when you have, the type advantage, even when you are appropriately leveled, those health bars go down so slowly. I feel like they maybe could have balanced that a little bit more to make these feel a little bit more snappy because there are so many of them that you do in the main story. I mean, this is a good chunk of the main missions in this game. I feel like these could have been done a little bit better, to be honest. But otherwise, I really, really do love the battle mechanics in this game and the shift up that we've had. I've seen a lot of people saying it's baby's first Xenoblade, and I think that is a pretty fair assessment, but it's engaging enough all throughout to not get boring. Aside from, like I said, maybe those mega battles where they feel like damage sponges. It's so satisfying just throwing out my Imbor, doing a flamethrower, or even, using moves that I never would use in another Pokemon game, like a fire spin, or, setting up for something like spikes. Seeing spikes on the field in this game is so funny because they literally physically are there, and then if they run over them, they do extra damage. Doing the ZA Battle Royale, throwing out your Pokemon, sneaking up on them to get the advantage and knock them out in one hit, having these battle cards around that give you bonus points. It all feels very fun, and it's all just very fast-paced, and I really, really enjoy the combat in this game. Once again, this is the beauty of Pokemon and how many games there are. I don't know if I would want this for every game. Certainly, I still think there are things they can do to refine it. Positioning can be a little weird, where I posted this clip on Twitter. I was fighting a Hippowdon, and I was like higher than it, and it used, I think it was Takedown, and it just launched itself off of a roof, and then I had to wait for it to respawn on top. So there's definitely some tweaking that needs to be done here, but overall, I really had a lot of fun with the combat in this game, more than I have in a while when it comes to playing a Pokemon game. So yeah, I guess my main negatives, my main takeaways from Legends ZA are the wild zones and the Lumiose City itself. Actually exploring the city, getting to rooftops can be a little cumbersome, and then some of the bosses feeling a little damage spongy. Those are my big three downsides to this game. And there are, other things that we can talk about, like the lack of voice acting. A lot of people are loving the lack of voice acting in this game because weirdly, Game Freak keeps doing these cutscenes where it looks like it should be the most voice-acted scene of all time. Like, they do these really nice-looking cutscenes, quite frankly, of the characters, especially in the beginning of the game, but then towards the end, where the mouths are moving. It looks like there should be voices coming out of them. It looks like your TV's on mute or something, and for some reason, it's not voice-acted. This is awkward, but it doesn't really take away that much from the experience to me. It's just like, oh, that's a little weird, but like that's not gonna like make me drop a point off the game. At least for me, other people might view that more importantly. For me, it's certainly something I think they should add. If it's not in Generation 10, I'm gonna be kind of flabbergasted. But also, it's not enough of a downside for me to be like, oh, I really think this is something we need to harp on and like drop points off of the game because of it. On the flip side, though, for Lumiose City, I'm saying I don't like the wild zones. I don't like exploring it all that much. I actually think the good does outweigh the bad here, at least in terms of this being, a single player Pokemon experience. I don't know how replayable it's going to be, 5, 10 years down the line, but the side quests in this game and the way it portrays Pokemon living their day-to-day life, and you're dealing with a group of Beldum that are blocking a passage, or you're fighting this Chespin that just refuses to leave this car, or you're going through this fantastic museum that is so rich with lore and history and fun nods to other games, and you're hunting down Spupa. This game offers a look into the everyday lives of Pokemon, unlike any other Pokemon game. Honestly, the closest that would maybe offer this type of experience would be something like a Poke Park, or maybe a mystery dungeon, but even those are different because they're literally talking to you. This feels very natural. You're getting to see the Pokemon and humans coexist, and playing through this game, and this is something I've known for a while, but playing through it, yes, I love catching Pokemon. I love battling Pokemon. I love the worlds and the regions and the stories and characters of Pokemon games. But also, I just love Pokemon. I love the creatures themselves. And this game really, really does a great job of just showing Pokemon doing stuff. And while I have my issues with Lumiose City, I'm not sure how well they would have done this if it was set in a much bigger map, right? It's specifically seeing all of these Pokemon in the city that I think makes it so charming. It was specifically the side quest where you're in the museum looking for Spupa, and I've never cared about Spupa. I've never thought about Scatterbug or its evolutions really, more than just, the pattern hunting for its final stage. But Spupa specifically, I never give that Pokemon a second thought. But in this game, they made Spupa a really endearing little guy. I really like Spupa in this side quest, and the side quests, I think, are Legends ZA's secret weapon. I have not done all of them yet, and I cannot wait to go back and finish them, and frankly, my thoughts on the game might go even higher after doing more of them, but they're awesome. Getting to see this look into everyday life in a Pokemon-filled city is so good. Beyond the battling, beyond the catching, that has been the secret highlights of this game for me that I feel like I haven't seen too many people really talking about, but they have done a great job making a city that feels lived in, and I love it for that, man. I think they did a really great job with that aspect in particular, and that's, I think they've done better than really any other Pokemon game, making the Pokemon feel like actual tangible things, not just, fodder for your team to go battle or grind or, do your Nuzlocke challenge or whatever. They actually feel like important parts of the world, which I think is awesome. And certainly other games have done that. Even in like the, GBA or DS era, you would see the sprites sitting next to an actual Pokemon sprite, and it would make its little noise or whatever. But this game just takes it above and beyond, takes it up another level. And I love it, man. I really, really think that is the secret highlights of this game. But also, and this is something I wasn't able to talk too much about in my early impressions because I wasn't that far into the actual story, I wasn't that well acquainted with the characters, this game has an awesome story. As someone who loves X and Y, I've always been an X and Y fan. Getting to see what would have been a Pokemon Z all these years later is amazing. It is so good, and the payoff is absolutely worth it. The 13 years of waiting or whatever it's been, 12 years of waiting, it was worth it. Getting to see Zygarde get its due justice in this game, not, relegated to a, shoehorned in side quest in Sun and Moon. Getting the Zygarde story the way Zygarde deserves is so great. Getting to see characters from X and Y, like a Mabel or like a AZ, right? Getting them 5 years into the future, seeing where they are is so fantastic. But also the new characters are really good as well. And, seeing how they tie into characters like, I think it's Lita is actually Tierno's sister from X and Y, right? And that's just your core group, but then you meet all these other trainers throughout your adventure ranking up in the ZA Battle Royale, like Kanari, I believe is how you pronounce her name, or Corbeau. Like, there are so many great characters in this game. Emma. Like, I don't want to get ahead of myself too much. This is one of those things that I need literally to sit on for years, I think, and, like, reflect on this game for a long time. But it honestly might have the best cast of characters in a Pokemon game. That is how good they all are. There's really not a single character in this game that I don't like seeing on the screen, to be honest. They're all very unique. They all have a great personality. And yeah, I really, really enjoy the characters. And the story itself, like I said, getting more on Zygarde. And then the ending, no spoilers. It's been a while since I played Black and White or something, and those are my favorite Pokemon games. This might have the best ending of any Pokemon game. It's really good. I'll leave it there, but if you've seen the ending, or maybe you've already finished it, or maybe you're a madman like me and you blitzed through this game, yeah, the ending in this, once again, as an X and Y fan specifically, is so good. Pokemon discussion online, but really just like video game discussion online, has gotten so boring because someone's going to comment on this video being like, oh, you don't like the wild zones and you don't like exploring Lumiose City and you don't like this or you don't like that. But yet you're saying all these positive things. It's impossible to think that you could have multiple feelings on certain aspects of this game and still ultimately like it. And truthfully, this is the most fun I have had with a Pokemon game since Arceus, and I would say it is only second to Arceus in terms of the Switch era of Pokemon games. Scarlet and Violet maybe would be higher if it didn't launch the way it did, right? I think mechanically and structurally, there's a lot that Scarlet and Violet did so well, but unfortunately, it did release the way it did, and that did seriously detract from the experience. Legends ZA does have issues. Don't get me wrong. There can be nuance to this conversation. There can be things that we don't like about it, but ultimately, the new combat system is awesome. The way that Pokemon are portrayed in it is fantastic. The story and the characters and the ending are all some of the best in the series. The music as well. We haven't even talked about the music. The remixes here. Once again, as someone who grew up with X and Y, man, oh my god. The music and the OST is so good in this game. And honestly, this might be a nuclear take. There are times where the game looks pretty ugly when you're in the concrete jungle of Lumiose and you're just surrounded by all these tall buildings and the gravel looks not the greatest. But there are other times when you're in the hotel, or maybe you're in a wild zone and there's a lot of grass, or maybe there's some water running, or maybe you're in a snowy wild zone or something, where the game actually looks really good. We do have to remember this is a Switch 1 game. The Switch 2 version offers 4K resolution and 60 FPS, and that feels and runs amazingly on the console, but it is a Switch 1 game. And honestly, having played the Switch 1 version for a decent amount for that first impressions video, I gotta be honest, I have really grown to like the art style for this game. And it runs good on Switch 1, and it certainly runs pretty much flawlessly on Switch 2. There was some slowdown towards the end of the game in the final boss sections, we'll say, so keep that in mind. But I actually like the way the game looks. There are some times where it looks maybe like the best Pokemon game on Switch. I would say maybe only second to like a Let's Go, but that's a whole different can of worms. Top-down remake of Kanto. This is much more open game. It can be inconsistent, right? There are those times where it looks really, really good, and then other times where it's like, okay, what's going on with this texture here? The flat balconies, in Lumiose City can be a little jarring at times. But when you're, in motion, just exploring this game, you don't really notice those things as much as when you're online seeing people post comparison screenshots, right? When you're actually sitting in Lumiose playing the game, it can look quite nice at times. I gotta be honest, I like the way this game looks, and that's coming from someone who was very critical of the art style when we first saw it. You can go back to my reaction. I was like, oh god, they're just making it look like Scarlet and Violet again. I am very happy to be wrong about that, because I think Scarlet and Violet are so ugly, not even just like graphically and like all the texture glitching. I think the art style of that game is not good. I do not like the way it looks. This I was very hesitant on when it was first announced, and I'm coming out of it actually quite liking it. Like the character models and stuff I think look really nice in this game. Oh, and final thing to top off everything so far in this video, something that I did not even try for the first impressions, and I haven't really seen that many people talking about, and I guess it makes sense. They're still playing through the story. The online mode is really fun. This kind of just goes in with the combat being, real time, having these cooldowns, but you have this 4-player free-for-all mode online, and I've played about 2 hours of it so far. I don't know how much longevity there is there. Maybe I'll come back for each rank season and, get the rewards or whatever, but it's a lot of fun. As someone who is a retired competitive Pokemon player, I have not done that, since back in the old days. Having this faster paced online 3-minute match mode where you're just doing a free for all and you're just trying to get the most KOs or get points other ways, a lot of fun. I really enjoy the online multiplayer in this game. So that is going to do it for my review of Pokemon Legends ZA. There are some negative aspects of this game. Absolutely. But having beaten the game now, having played it, with still much to do, and I'm very excited to get back in there and do all those side quests and stuff. And seeing the leaks from the Game Freak hack, I mean this when I say it, I don't think there's been a better time to be a Pokemon fan. I know people are going to come at me for that, but the future is so bright. Game Freak clearly does listen to what the fans want, and they are, they're getting to that point. These steps might feel more incremental than we would like. We would like to see that bigger, ripping off the Band-Aid moment where we get voice acting and we get this very next-gen looking Pokemon game all at once. And that's not their style, which, that might be a disappointment for some. But for me, the positives of this game heavily outweigh the bad, because many of those aspects I actually think are the best in the series. So that is going to do it for today's review. Let me know your thoughts on Legends ZA now that it is out. What are your first impressions of it? I imagine not many people have played as much as I have. I will have more videos in the future talking about this game. I think I'll do like a 1 week later review kind of thing once I do shiny hunting, once I 100% it, do the Pokédex, everything, just to kind of see how we're feeling after putting a much more significant amount of time with it. Because once again, those side quests are so good. Honestly, my review might be even more positive by the time we get there. This game isn't perfect. There are a lot of nitpicks, but I had a wonderful time with it, and I sincerely think the series is moving in the right direction. Of course, as always, if you are new here and you enjoy Pokemon and Nintendo coverage, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Until next time, folks, peace.